Hi guys, it's Colette, and today I'll be kicking off Water Marble March 2017 with kind of a new technique. For my new subscribers, Water Marble March is my own challenge to myself to do all water marbles all month long. No plain manicures and no normal nail art. And this color splash water marble was inspired by the kind of swirled drops that I learned from Eugenia in the water splash blobacure that I did. And I took that technique and pretty much applied it to water marbling. So if you'd like to be notified of all my new uploads, be sure you're subscribed and have your notifications turned on. And if you'd like to see how I did this design, just stay tuned. Before I get started on the marble, of course I have to take off my previous manicure. And I've only had this hollow awesomeness on for a couple days. But unfortunately, if you can see here, not sure how that'll show up in between all the rainbows, but I have a little crack on my index finger that I need to repair. And I thought about just repairing it and resticking that nail, but I've also lost my pinky nail on my other hand for actually the second time. I had already replaced that once, so I decided to go ahead and take off the rest of them. And I've found, for me, unfortunately, that using gel polish makes the peel-off base coat last even less time than with a normal manicure. You know, I usually don't get more than a couple days of wear out of it, and I'm still trying to work on my technique to improve that. Some of these are actually not coming off quite as easily as I anticipated, so I do think I'm improving, but the one thing I definitely recommend is to wrap your tips really well, because a lot of the time the first place I see it start to lift is right at the tip of the nail. It's like I get tip wear, and then it starts to get caught on things, and then the whole thing pops off. So I'm going to take this off and then clean up my nails the rest of the way and move on to the marbling. So you can see my index nail is all repaired, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with my base coat. As usual, I'm using Ready for Takeoff, which is a peel-off base coat, and you can use whichever is your personal favorite. And you may notice that the repair on my index nail looks a little different. I'm still kind of experimenting repairing with no actual patch. I've just been using the gel, and so far so good. Before I move on to my base color, I'm just going to quickly go over the polishes that I'm using. And if you miss anything, as usual, everything I use, polishes and tools, will be listed and linked down in the information box. Everything today is OPI. For the black, I'm using Black Onyx. And then this purple is What's the Hatter with You. The pink is Mad for Madness Sake. And the blue is Fearlessly Alice. And you may recognize those three from my Alice in Wonderland water marble. And I'll be using the black as my base color. I worried a little bit that this might make the manicure too dark, but after a little bit of testing, I decided that a white base was not going to guarantee me that the black water marble would be as dark as I wanted, so I decided to go this route. Next, I'll be protecting around my nails with Simply Peel, and you can use whichever kind of barrier you prefer to protect around the edges. Okay, so I've got my 5-ounce cup of room temperature filtered water. I've got my black here. I have a large dotting tool and a plastic lid to use as my palette. And before I start making my bullseye, I'm going to dab out some of the 3 colors here on my lid. And I want it to be a generous amount because I want this to be enough for the whole water marble, and I want to be able to kind of scoop it up with my dotting tool, and in some cases even get an actual drip. In some cases I may have to touch the dotting tool to the surface of the water to get the polish off. But you'll see as we get going here, and I'll try to keep this visible down in the corner of the frame. So now that I've got those, I'm going to go ahead and get started with a few drops of black. I'm going to start out with like 3 here, just to get a good set of outer rings going. Then with the dotting tool, I'm going to mix these colors up, scoop up a glom, and dip it into the cup. Another drop of black, another dot of swirled polish, and I'm just going to continue that until my bullseye's built. Once the bullseye is complete and the polish has stopped spreading, I'm going to go ahead and start to draw in my design. I want to use just the very point of the orange stick and a very, very light touch. And I thought, since I'm playing with kind of a complicated polish idea, to keep the design idea more on the simple side. So I'm just going to draw in a basic flower design. And now that I have the design finished, I'm going to just take a look and decide where in the design I want to dip my nail. And I think for this one, this turned out a little bit lopsided, so I think I'm just going to pick 1/2 and do my thumb. And I'm just turning it to make the dipping a little bit easier on myself. Just going to line up my thumb as evenly as I can, and then go ahead and dip. And make sure none of the polish is still on the surface. That was starting to dry out a little bit, so you saw how it kind of almost crumpled when I dipped in. Just gonna slowly pull my nail out. And there's the water marble. So, as I move these couple things out of the way here, once you have your nail out of the water, you can go ahead and remove your protection, or you can wait if you're afraid of the wet polish, but I like to take mine off right away. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish off the rest of this hand before I move on to the cleanup. And for cleanup, I'll just be using my normal small brush and acetone. If your pile of polish is still decently wet, feel free to just add to it. But if it starts to get it all like sticky or gummy, you're going to want to start a new spot so that that doesn't affect how it is spreading or drying once you add it to the Bullseye. So just keep an eye on it and use your best judgment. I did get a few bubbles in this design. Thinking they're kind of not going to show up great because they're so dark, but hopefully you can see a few of them. And what I'm going to do is, once cleanup is done, it should be dry enough that you can just carefully press them flat before you move on to your top coat. If you just top coat, the bubbles will just pop. They may smear or they may just leave a hole. So just do your best to get all the air out and get them all as flat as possible. Finally, as usual, I'll be finishing off with Seche Vite. So here's the finished manicure, and I know this may be on the dark side for some people, but I really like the way it turned out. I feel like there's still a little bit of a learning curve for this new technique. I got quite a bit of variation in color between my two hands, but that's kind of the point with this. And when you look closely, you can definitely see the swirls colors within each band of the water marble. And I can't wait to play around with this some more. I think it might be really cool to do a cup of just the swirl drops with no solid color in between. And I don't know if you'd even need to draw a pattern in that. You might be able to dip right into just the swirls as they spread out. But that may be coming later on this month. I do have a ton of ideas. And then this popped into my head and it just jumped immediately to the front of the line. Like I mentioned at the very start of the vid, this was pretty much inspired off of the water splash blobicure that I did. And I thought at first, since that was my inspiration, that I'd try those colors. And that was kind of a hot mess. They were drying quicker than I'd prefer in the water, and they weren't drawing a very good design. So then I dug and I found some OPI colors that were kind of similar, and I like the way this turned out. These two designs were actually the same combination of colors swirled together. This was a green, a blue, and a white, but I thought it wasn't quite what I was looking for. So then since I was looking for something that dried really slowly, I think that helps with this particular technique. I pulled out my Alice in Wonderland colors, and not sure if you can see on these swatches, they're showing up really dark, but that started giving me kind of better results, more what I was looking for, and played around with it a little bit more. This one I actually top coated the test swatch. You may be able to see it a bit better. And I did try them with white also, which is kind of cool, but I really, really liked the dark version, and so that's what I decided to go with on my nails for this first attempt. I would, of course, love to hear what you guys think of this, if you might give it a try, or if you think it's an additional complication to water marbling, which is already complicated enough, and an additional random factor to water marbling, which is already pretty random. But lots more to come for Water Marble March. I plan on showing you guys some behind the scenes stuff. I didn't really record my testing with this because I was kind of off on a tear. I just got the idea and started testing it right away without thinking about recording it. But I will be showing some of my testing as the month goes on. And of course, to make sure you get all the notifications, be sure you're subscribed and have that little bell turned on. I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, thanks for watching.